Skrill boys, TGD and bits. Only 2 days till Christmas. All I want for Oh, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Skrill Boys TGD and Bids. I am, of course, as always, your host, Nicholas, otherwise known as Skrill Boy. Now, today we're going to be talking about a different topic, as indicated by the title right here. We're going to be talking about 5 Christmas movies that are good or bad, but they could be better. Really, this just came from an idea of a certain Christmas movie that I recently watched that is good, but admittedly, it is not as good as the original. Most of these are just sequels, while others are original ideas or adaptations. So, without further ado, let's start. But first, we must go over the rules for this rewrite of sorts. The rules of these quick rewrites is one, they must somewhat follow the original movie's structure, which means no major altercations to it. But on the same time, I will violate that rule maybe once or twice. Number two, I can't be too harsh. Well, except for two of them. Number three, it rule number three, it basically would have been if I wrote the script. If I were the one to helm the movie or have written the movie. And number four, I I really had an absolute blast with these rewrites. I have different ideas for them, but just a little heads up, I won't be having little descriptions for them. That's because I found that to be kind of dumb. So, anyways, let's start with the first one. Or really, this is in no particular order, but I just decided to rank them 1 through 5. First up, movie that got me on this adventure: Home Alone 2: Lost in New York. Now, I know that people love the original Home Alone, and some bash the sequel, but I truly do think that it's a worthy successor to the first Home Alone. And it's evident so. It ups the stakes and also is really creative in some of its callbacks. And as usual, the traps are amazing, but there are some key details that the first movie has that the second movie doesn't. Sure, the movie does go bigger. It ultimately sort of kind of forgets what made the first one so well good. The the familial part of it. Basically, the family feels more or less like an afterthought in this movie, but they do still get some substantial screen time like they did in the screen time that they did in the original. Of course, this is for better or for worse, as sometimes this is blatantly forced, sometimes kind of like the opening sequence, which I found kind of weird. I guess they just wanted to find a way to recreate the dinner scene where everyone now hates Kevin again. But really, come on. Also, the person that Kevin befriends in the finale, like, how does she know that well, the wet bandits were gonna be back, and also that Kevin was gonna be taken into the park where the bird feed was gonna be? Well, I want this to be established with all of this stuff, plus a few more things. Maybe this new friend of Kevin's could be the wife of, well, Old Man Marley. And in visual aids and with visual storytelling, every time that Kevin sees her, she's less and less crowded by birds. Or basically, when he's first seeing her, she's obscured by birds, making her seem like a monstrous mass that Kevin is afraid of. Of course, this is typical for Kevin, and and maybe he has second thoughts about befriending her, but of course, more spook. He does get more spooked by things. Also, another thing that needs to be addressed in the sequel is that, well, the wet bandits still are idiots. They thought that now they try to give a valid excuse saying that, oh, they're not at the McAllister household anymore. So obviously this is something that, well, yeah, that so they don't know what's in store. They should at least make them somewhat competent. I know that Chris Columbus is more talented than this. But if there's one thing that I would really love to change is, well, that the personal relationship with the lady at the end and Kevin. Seriously, I can't remember her name. But yeah, she has I mean, like, old man Marley, we need to somewhat get a status update on him. So maybe this is long forgotten wife, and maybe that's what we're looking for. But I don't really know if that's the way to go. But it would make for a very interesting plot point, and also would connect the first film and the second film more directly. I think as well. It kind of feels like, well, uh, well, it just kind of feels like that this film is just deep is not as connected to the first film than it is. Sure, it has the same main characters, but but I mean, like, come on. Also, she's just named Pigeon Lady. Like, you don't give her a name. So I'm just gonna call her Mrs. Mrs. Marley, just for Pete's sake. And also, we can get introduced, well, for properly introduced to Kevin's to well, formally introduced to well, yeah, old man Marley's granddaughter, who could be somewhat of a help to Kevin, and even have and even have, well, a nice little relate best friend relationship. And, well, this could and of course Kevin can even reconcile more in the scene in the scene in the theater. And that's where Kevin could probably tell Mrs. Marley that 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 the wet bandits are going to crash at Duncan's toy chest. So they so so she advises her daughter to go with him, and of course then that's when and Kevin tells her the granddaughter character that that well that well that if anything goes wrong, she'll just go tell her grandmother. Of course, she also gives a tip on instead of using paint cans on the bandits, paint cans on the bandits, or just spraying paint when they fall down from the kerosene rope. Instead, cover them in a sticky substance, as her grandmother will know what to do. Will know what to do. Will know what to do. Therefore, setting up when the bandits get covered in bird seed. In bird seed. I also want there to be a third bandit, played by Joe Pesci's friend Robert De Niro. a much more threatening presence, and definitely something to to really well also balance nicely with Tim Curry in the movie, as he's not really that threatening, as it's just a PG level Tim Curry, even though that there are some moments where he does show his more dark side. The dark side of him is more apparent in other movies and in the extraterrestrial alien encounter. And also maybe when Kevin's mother, Mrs. McAllister, searches for her son, maybe she indirectly meets Harry and Marv, or sees them in a police cab, or at least something that she can interact with the main finale. Maybe she sees Kevin for a brief bit, and then Kevin hears his mom, and then realizes he can't have her at the old apartment building, as she would fall into the same traps that the robbers would. A nice little thing that wasn't present in the original. And of course, I don't want there to be no room fee thing, as that's always bothered me. As I don't want there to be a rinse and repeat finale from the original, where it's a heartfelt goodbye, but then of course Kevin messes up. Kevin messes up again. This time, I want there to be a reconciliation finale, so that way it feels like a true ending to the Home Alone duology. And yes, this is a duology. Anything afterwards is not canon because I say so. And if I say anything else is canon in the Home Alone franchise, oh boy, I'd be starting a fire. But yeah, that's a quick fix for Home Alone 2. Just emphasizing the relationship between Kevin and the now named um, Mrs. Mrs. Marley, and also introducing a third burglar that is more threatening and actually is competent, but still falls into some of the traps that Kevin set, as he even takes account for that. And well, yeah. Otherwise, Home Alone 2 is a good movie, but that's just some ways it could be better. Number 2 is actually a surprising one, The Santa Claus 2. Now, if you're not wondering what this is, let me give you a little recap. In 1994, Disney made a film with Tim Allen called The Santa Claus. It ended up becoming a Christmas classic, although you don't see much people talking about it today. Or its two lesser sequels, Santa Claus 2 and Santa Claus 3. Now, the reason why is because that they significantly dwindled down in the writing department because of, well, it being the 2000s. One of them even went direct to video, I think, even though I could be wrong. Now, this is just an aesthetic appearance of mine, but I kind of hate the bushy, thick beard that Santa gets, that Santa, aka Scott Calvin, gets in the sequel. So I want it to be more like the original Santa Claus finale. Where it's all long, scruffy, and you know what I'm talking about. And you know what I'm talking about when I say that. Also, what happened to all the gadgets from the original? As that just feels like a cardinal sin to just ignore all the gadgets. Just ignore all the gadgets. And also, the villain for this movie is not really that good. You see, the original never really needed a clear-cut villain. If you could argue at the end, it could be just the ops and the police, or or Charlie's, surrogate dad. Charlie's, surrogate dad. Or 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 Charlie's, adopt. Or Charlie's, surrogate dad. Or Charlie's, surrogate dad. Or Charlie's, surrogate dad. But there really was no main antagonist in the Santa Claus 2. But now we do have a main antagonist. And also, I feel like that expanding to different holidays is just kind of weird. If they want to do that, then maybe they could in different ways. But I feel like The Nightmare Before Christmas established it pretty well when the the different holidays of America and by extension the world are kept behind lands and doors, or if you watch the movie. But I think that should be somewhat the same approach here, although for some reason they do include the tooth fairy for some weird reason, which the tooth fairy is not really a part of a holiday. The tooth fairy is just, well, a legend that kind of, now you could argue the same for Santa Claus, as he's a legend too, but he's a part of a holiday. And really, the tooth fairy just comes when your teeth come out, and when you're an adult, that's less and less frequent. So wouldn't that be counterintuitive? Also, there's a baby reindeer in this movie, but it's a no-name baby reindeer that I can't even remember the name of because I don't care. So for Pete's sake, just make him Rudolph. Also, something that completely was a 180 from the original movie was that the reindeer could now talk. Don't know how, but they can talk. Maybe it's because that they were shy to talk, but I feel like that the reindeer could have at least limited their talking, their their speaking lines, at least not to overbloat the movie with immature jokes. Also, another thing that I found pretty interesting was that the love story doesn't really get that much time to shine. I mean, like, it's a Christmas movie, and in a way, sort of replicates the drama from the first movie, where Scott needs to become Santa Claus. Scott needs to become Santa Claus. Ultimately, I just feel like that this movie shouldn't have existed, but in the right time and the right efforts, this could have been a worthy sequel to the Santa Claus. It just didn't have enough time. It just wasn't worth my time, and really, I don't care enough with this movie for for multiple amount of reasons. But I'm pretty sure if they would have added Rudolph, gave the love story more time to shine, made the reindeer talk less, and also and here's something really big, gave Charlie a more prominent role in the movie, then yeah, this would have been probably a good movie to this probably would have been a good predecessor. But we'll just have to be stuck with this and just stare into the abyss and wonder what could have been. Now, number 3 is really not something that, I mean, like, this story is a classic, and really, I don't blame it. You can't reinvent the wheel. But this one has been told 3 times, and has been evidently so. The first time animated, and the second in live action. In live action with 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 Jim Carrey. Full blown. But the third one missed the mark more than an inch. Of course, I'm talking about number 3, Illumination's The Grinch. Thought that was a nice little touch. Now, I could go on and on as to why Illumination is just a mediocre studio, and ever since Despicable Me, they've never been able to recapture that same magic. Well, if you sort of count Despicable Me 2, but yet again, that's really stretching it. Every time Illumination makes a movie, it's constantly mediocre. And that's the case with Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. Initially, people were intrigued, but I mean, like, I wasn't really intrigued by this movie. I thought the animation looked cool, and The Grinch sounded interesting, but but well, I mean, like, people should have known that this was gonna be. Well, people did know that this was gonna be a mediocre movie, but what ultimately came was a very bad adaptation of The Grinch, one of Dr. Seuss's most iconic books. And for some weird reason, it still had the heart and effort put into it, like continuing the typical rhymes in a Dr. Seuss book and also staying true to the Seuss style. But it's oversaturation of the what I like to call illumination isms, like cheap culture references, in this case, Christmas pop culture references, a bad performance by Benedict Cumberbatch as the titular character, and not understanding the original's intent and tale. You see, the 2018 Grinch is supposed to be adorkable. You see, they try to give him a backstory when really the Grinch doesn't need such. The Carrie version did give the Grinch a backstory, but at least with that one, it's totally justified. And but the Grinch still does mean things, and of course, still sticks to the original intent of the classic book. However, this movie does not get it at all. Also, I kind of don't like the design for the Grinch. The Who's and Max, I don't mind. And even the reindeer. What's his name? Fred. I don't mind his design. But the titular character, the Grinch, just kind of bugs me. You see, the Grinch the Grinch had like a very unique little visual change to signify that he was redeemed. You see, the Grinch in the original and the Jim Carrey version, his eyes changed from either a yellow a yellow pupil and a red iris, or in the case of the Carrey version, a red red pupil or and green irises, to the normal white pupil and 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 blue and blue blue irises, showing that he was redeemed. This just makes the Grinch look like a man in an elaborate cosplay. You see, the whole reason why this Grinch design does not really get me as much is because, one, it doesn't emulate at all what the Grinch is supposed to be. It tries to go for the original design, but also tries to implement some of the illuminationisms, as well as giving birth to the baby Grinch, or kid Grinch. Basically, a shameless ploy to sell plushies. So, how to fix this movie? Well, it was originally leaked online, and I heard of it just now, that the Grinch's design was going to be more in line with the original design in the book and and in the and in the 1965 short. That would have been something amazing, and I think they should have kept that. Also, the narrator is well, Nick Cannon. Look, now this is nothing against Nick Cannon. From a Nick to a Nick. But couldn't you have just let Morgan Freeman or David Attenborough narrate this? Or at least someone who has a menacing undertone? Also, the Grinch song was absolutely done dirty in this movie. This movie had the audacity to make the Grinch's famous song, "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch," into a rap number. That's what happens when you give Illumination the rights to Dr. Seuss movies. And apparently, this movie was actually riding on a lot for the studio. You see, The Grinch and the Lorax are the only two times Illumination got to adapt a, a Seuss book. As after The Grinch, Dr. Seuss Dr. Seuss book adaptations never really became popular place anymore. Or better yet, the Dr. Seuss the owners of the Dr. Seuss books just decided to part ways with Universal. Basically basically relinquishing or taking away the film rights to the Dr. Seuss catalog. There were apparently much more Dr. Seuss Illumination movies coming out. Apparently one based on how far the places you'll go and The Cat in the Hat. Glad Illumination didn't ruin those, but what if The Grinch was actually a good movie? Well, like I said, the original design should have been more based on the 65 version with the yellow and red eyes. With the yellow and red eye with the yellow and red eyes. And then once the heart transformation kicks in, well, they change into the more humanistic white with blue irises. Another thing that also should be mentioned here is the Who's, specifically Cindy Lou. Now, I like that they went through the trouble to actually give a reason as to why Cindy wakes up to talk to the Grinch. I think that's a great reason, but the execution is just well, it's handled how you would expect from Illumination. Poorly. Poorly. This movie basically has the audacity to have the Who kids form a group and try and kidnap Santa Claus. Wait a minute, that sounds like another movie that I like. In with three individuals who kidnap Santa Claus. Oh God. So you're trying to tell me that this Cindy Lou Who is just the opposite of Lock, Shock, and Barrel. You shameless bamsters. So, how to fix that? Well, instead of them trying to trap Santa for and it being for a good reason, Cindy Lou would actually awake when the Grinch comes in, as he does as an ornament, as he accidentally lets a plastic ornament go upstairs into Cindy's room and accidentally wake her up. And of course, this means she can finally talk to Santa. I also really want Santa to be an actual character. Maybe when the Grinch is about to steal Christmas, we see a flash of light go over go over Whoville with Christmas cheer and then flashes away again. For a brief moment, the Grinch can see Santa Claus. Can see Santa Claus. And really, that's something that a Grinch adaptation has never really done. It's never touched on the idea that Santa is ever real in this universe. That Santa is ever real in this universe. So I wanted to make that clear. I wanted to clarify that up. Also, he needs to be an irredeemable monster. But slowly but surely you can see cracks in his menacing facade. Because, well, one of the biggest flaws in the movie is when he lets Max go. Well, no, not Max. Fred the reindeer go. Because it shows that he's capable before his heart grows three sizes. He's supposed to be he's supposed to be mean and get rid of the angstiness. And of course, if there's one more thing that needs to be fixed here, is the is of course the song. Instead, I would have Pentatonics do a cover. Oh, wait a minute, they did. Around the time the movie came out, Pentatonics actually did a recover, a cappella version of the classic You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch song. And it's in the original key of the original. And of course, it hits all the beats. It's modern, but classic at the same time. I can listen to that song and say, yeah, that's that's the song that I remember from the original. And what's really upsetting is that Danny Elfman composed the score. And he composed the score for the 2000 version of The Grinch. And also the composer of The Nightmare Before Christmas. Wasted talent, Universal. And Illumination, too. But with those changes, I'm pretty sure this movie could have been Illumination's standout Dr. Seuss movie. Sure, the Dr. Seuss company probably still would have left Illumination after what happened with the Lorax. But at least this would have been a final hoorah for the adaptations. All right, so the next one you're going to probably put into question as to why I chose this. Frozen 2. Why, out of all the movies, did I choose this one? Because it just pains me the most when I just don't get why this movie even exists. Because honestly, in my upcoming Fixing Disney thing, the movie, I have a I have a very back and forth where I either want to fix this movie or I want it to stay the same mediocre way it is. But as a part of this video, and this will apply to my future fixing Disney video, let's fix Frozen 2. Obviously, Elsa and Anna's character arcs aren't doing anything. Also, I really thought that Anna was going to get some special powers in this movie. Also, I do think that the songs, while they are good, while they are good, some of them just hit harder than others, and all the soundtracks, all the tracks in the movie are are really just hit or miss. Some are good, and others are less. But Into the Unknown is much more tolerable than Let It Go, in my opinion. But there's just one key aspect missing: a Disney villain. I think the general should have actually been the main villain here. The reason why the spirits are in turmoil, and also, and maybe even so, maybe when Anna and Elsa have one of those memory things comes up, with Arendelle, and of course their future leader. Maybe the snow sculpture actually takes sentience and becomes the general reincarnated. Therefore, he then pees off the spirits and also has a villain song and also has somewhat of a villain song number. Maybe being maybe being somewhat of a reverse of it, but I want him to be an actual secret to the main characters. But he could, and of course, show his inner plan to finally take over Arendelle, and sees Elsa as an unworthy queen. As an unworthy queen, as of course, it kind of just tolerates on the whole thing where he comes into power. And he can even also manipulate Anna into thinking that he's the good guy, that he is the one that can save them, and maybe even gives Anna powers temporarily. Maybe abuses that isolation is feeling, and maybe Anna accidentally kills Olaf. It would honestly be more heartbreaking if one of the main characters killed another main character. And of course, Elsa finally gets that big hero moment that she desperately needed in the first movie to finally justify her character. And also, we can finally get an official answer to her power, to the source of her power. And maybe even something else like that. Also, I do think that Arendelle, well, at least the castle should have been destroyed. Should have been destroyed as a repercussions of their action, of the actions of the heroes. Should have at least been destroyed. Or maybe the spirits actually do see that Arendelle is worthy to keep. And again, whole lot of possibilities here. Although I would actually recommend going to check out the Into the Unknown documentary where yeah, it turns out that Disney was really starting to lean more towards financials than more towards financials than creativity. And it's in due in part because of The Good Dinosaur. Yeah, that movie just can't catch a break. But if these things did happen and the movie did have the clear-cut plan that it should have had, maybe we could have actually had a solid movie and actually a better sequel to the from the original, which in retrospective is kind of mediocre. But the final one, and this one is probably gonna confuse all you. Well, at least it confuses me. Number 5 is the Polar Express. Now I know that this is a Christmas classic. Don't get angry for me at that. But I can't help but feel like there's one glaring issue. You see, the story's good. The characters are good. Like, the characters in concept are good. The train design is absolutely immaculate. But there's one problem with it. That is the animation of it all. You see, you see, Robert Zemeckis could have made a good movie here. It could have actually been a fun movie. We could have actually had a great movie if it weren't for the fact that he insisted on it being a mocap. On mocap. Now, on the surface, this would have been a great leap forward. Realistic animation. However, they also wanted to stay true to the book, where it looks like they're from the book and therefore look painterly. And some shots in that movie do look pretty good. Still do pull very well. But it's just that when it's not focusing on the kid, on the human characters, when you get a close up of the humans, oh god, nightmare fuel. So, what could have been the fix of this? Easy. 2D animation. They could have just made this an animated film. God dang it. If this was an animated movie, like purely animated, and they just took the actors acting as purely just for reference, like they did back in the old days, this possibly would have pioneered animation again. Also, the story could have some profound meaning to it, as the boy could have a little bit more spoken out feelings as to why he doesn't believe in Santa anymore, is because that his friends at school basically have been saying that Santa, do you really think that someone could fly around the world in one night delivering presents to all the good little boys and girls? And he could even say, in movies, it's possible, but in real life, it's not. It's not. So, therefore, it's impossible for Santa to exist. And therefore, he got all factual about it. However, at the same time, he forgot why he basically was also ruining the spirit of Christmas. he never really thought what kind of impact this would have on him. Maybe the song where the boy and the girl sing, where the boy and little where the girl and the little boy whose name is Charlie. Oh, wait, sorry, Billy. Billy Maximoff confirmed. I'm sorry, but and and of course maybe even some more backstory on Billy. Also, we need more clear cut names for these kids, as of course we have. So maybe this one could just be named Josh, or maybe, but I decided to go with a more mystical name, something that actually evokes. And his name is and I want his name to be Klaus. Gee, I wonder if that will come up in the future. But like I said, the animation needs to be more like the book. However, they can still try and do mocap things, and even mesh CGI in there, specifically for the train, with the combination with it being a combination of 2D imagery with 3D models actually taken of the Polar Express's real life inspiration, the Pierre Maquette, which still exists today in real life. So, yeah, that's it. That's how these 5 Christmas movies are good, but they can be better. So, let's wrap this thing up. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash the like button. And don't forget to, while you're down there, subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to me. It'd be a great gift for me this Christmas. And also, if you really want to stay up to date, ring a ding ding the notification bell because then you'll know when I upload a new video. And also share this video with your friends. It basically would extend my reaches, and I really want to provide the best content I can. But for now, my friends, long live the Skrills. Only 3 days more till Christmas. See ya all tomorrow or on Christmas Eve. Bye.